again. Jesse Lingard, Gomez with a save! And it's in! And Manchester United have won it in the death! And Schweinsteiger, who knows all about winning things with Bayern Munich, has snatched the victory for Manchester United! Glenn's ball forward towards Young, who switched sides. Good control by Young. And it falls in for Lingard! What an opportunity! Couldn't take it.
Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Chronicles Express with me, Andy, from the Red Devil Chronicle. This week, Schweinsteiger provides a sting at the Hornets and the Theatre of Dreams puts United fans to sleep. United chat coming up next. Yes, so unfortunately, as you can hear from the sound quality, no studio available to us this week, which also means, of course, no Nick and no producer Joe with me either. So you're just left with me manning the barracks this week, but we're going to have a chat through what's happened during the week, and also on the show we're going to have a look forward to the weekend preview, of course, against Leicester. Now, first of all, turning to the Watford game, might as well start there with last weekend's win. Of course, Watford 1, Manchester United 2. What a relief that was. A game that we should have had over by half-time, in my opinion. We were in complete control of it. It was pretty easy. Igalo had one chance in the game that we'd gifted to them, but other than that, it had been very quiet at Vicarage Road from Watford's point of view. Now, this to me is symptomatic of United's inability to kill off a game, but obviously things did start out well. It was the perfect start to the game. Changing style early on, we saw it in the warm, as was pointed out. They were looking to cross the ball into the box more often, get the ball in early, give service to, of course, the makeshift striker in Memphis on the day. Now, it's a lovely delivery from Herrera in from the right-hand side. Just put it into the danger area. Memphis gambles, takes his goal really well. Really happy for Memphis, of course, following his return after being withdrawn from the spotlight in the past couple of weeks. Now, losing Herrera did change the game for me after such a bright and positive start. Of course, his injury forced him off, and it was a bizarre substitution from Louis van Gaal. I can't really understand what his thinking was there, but of course Rojo came on, and that reintroduced nightmares to United fans, of course, the 3-5-2, if you could call it a 3-5-2 anyway. We certainly know there were three at the back, and there were certainly two wing backs and two holding midfielders, but once Herrera was gone, beyond that, Mata, Lingard and Memphis left up top. I don't know if they were given free roles or whether they misread LVG's counters on his little pad, but they were completely all over the show. There was no structure to us up front, and as a result, we did not recycle the ball as well in the final third. We didn't create as many chances, so the loss of Herrera was absolutely massive. And with the loss of structure up top as well, we completely lost control of the game. Now, we did look comfortable, as I say, from the most part. Rojo did show a bit of naivety with the challenge to concede the penalty, of course, with United looking set to record a sort of comfortable and fairly routine 1-0 away win. It was definitely a penalty. I don't think there can be any dispute about that. It was a silly challenge, and if it had just let Igalo keep backing into him, he'd have probably got a free kick. So a bit naive from Rojo, but what can you expect when these players aren't given game time? Now, Watford were applying pressure on the build-up to that. David De Gea made some stunning saves during it to keep us at 1-0 up beforehand. But prior to the equaliser, I think you can't really argue that Watford didn't deserve the goal. They deserved their equaliser at the time. And of course, that got rid of our clean sheet record. 641 minutes, I believe, we'd gone without conceding a goal in all competition. Maybe it's a good thing. I think it will stop LVG's obsession with only focusing on the defence. I think it's been great that we've got some solidity in the back line, but I think it's time to get the leash off some of the players upfield and produce a bit of spark. Have a shot from distance, try and play a killer pass. Let's stop focusing just purely on having a solid hard-to-beat team. Let's try and build that forward now. There was, however, the return of the United of old, in some respects, of course. For the first time I can remember since 2012, United immediately showed intent and fought until the end to try and get that winner, something that has been sadly lacking and something I was absolutely delighted to see. As a result of it, of course, Schweinsteiger gets the ball from about 6 yards out, puts it back across goal. Shame the goal won't go to Schweinsteiger. It was clearly Troy Deeney own goal as it was given. But the celebrations from him and certainly from Herrera also on the bench, if you've seen them, absolutely encapsulate the United spirit for me. And we need more passion from other players. I won't mention any names, but I think we all know that there are certain players in the squad that are lacking the passion and desire that you need to have at a club like Manchester United. Now, the man of the match for me, there were two options that we gave to the fans on the poll, purely because one was given by BT Sport. They gave it to Memphis. I'm not entirely sure why. Yes, he took his goal well and was okay in parts, but I still think a long way away from the finished product that we are expecting. I gave it to David De Gea personally. As I said, made a couple of crucial saves at really important times, particularly the one that deflected, of course, off Chris Smalling. So we put the vote out to you and said, well, who's your man of the match? Would you give it to De Gea as we are, or would you give it to Memphis as BT Sport were on the day? 76% of fans who voted on the poll agreed that David De Gea was man of the match. So some clear agreement from the majority of fans that David De Gea deserved it. Another brilliant match from him. And it's an absolute delight, whatever happens with De Gea going forward, that we have him for the time being. Otherwise, we would not be where we are at the moment. Now, let's hear some reviews and scores out of 10 for the performance against Watford from the fans. We asked you on Twitter for your sort of one-line reviews and scores out of 10. We've got one here from Cogsy666. Should have finished the game earlier. Invited pressure by sitting back on a 1-0 lead. Exactly the problem. Fundamentally seems to be a United issue at the moment, whether that's Louis van Gaal or the players switching off, that a 1-0 lead they seem to think is enough when clearly it isn't. At Saifik Arabi says, before we change to the 3-5-2, it's an 8, then a 6 after the change in formation. I think it's a fair point. I still think we were comfortable with 3 at the back, though. Personally, I think it should have been an easily won game. And also with Daley Blind pushed out as sort of the wing back, his passing ability is second to none. Anyone in the United squad at the moment. There may be better passers than him overall, but they're not showing it. And that ball from him to Jesse Lingard was absolutely incredible, and chances should have been taken. At Sirius One says glimpses of a forgotten United thanks to a squeaky bum time winning own goal. When was the last time we heard phrases like that? He gives it a 7 out of 10. At True Fan Man United, 8 out of 10 for him. Need to kill off teams when we're on top, but happy with the result. I think that pretty much sums it up. There's one last one here at Big C, 75. An ugly win, but a win nonetheless. Nice to see some of that never say die attitude. A 6.5 out of 10 from him. Absolutely right. And on the subject of ugly, I think it's time that we have to turn to the PSV game. Unfortunately, Manchester United 0, PSV 0 last night, of course, in the Champions League. A must-win game for us. 3 points that we had to get, and we didn't. Now, it was on the 10th year anniversary, of course, of George Best's death, and the fans put together a magnificent tribute for a United legend, really well put together. Just a shame that the players delivered something that seemed a million miles away from the football that we'd have seen under George Best and the United team of that time, though. Well done and congratulations if you made it through the whole game. The second half, probably one of the most painful watching experiences I've ever been to. And I would say, watching the game, only Chris Smalling in parts and Daley Blind were okay on the day. Everyone else was absolutely awful. Just my opinion. I thought everyone else had a terrible game. Martial and Lingard particularly wasteful of good chances, and this seems to be a problem. I think LVG must invest in an experienced, proven striker. If they're available in January, please get them then to give our season a chance. Otherwise, it's a big priority for the summer transfer window. My concern is that we're putting a lot of pressure on players like Martial and Lingard early on in their United careers. I know Lingard's 22. Martial, of course, is 19, so younger. But I think they've just come into the side and there is a lot of expectation around them purely because they are the only excitement that United fans have to back at the moment. And so I feel that getting in a proven goal scorer, someone that is going to sit as a number 9 and get the goals guaranteed each season, is absolutely essential, because we are now creating some chances and we are also now wasting a lot of them as well. Now, United on the evening for me can be summed up in 3 words: lifeless, mechanical, broken. Schneiderlin had the worst game I've seen in a United shirt from his perspective. Really like Schneiderlin, but as a midfield in general, him and Schweinsteiger both went missing in front of the back line, left us very vulnerable, and I would have actually taken Schneiderlin off over Schweinsteiger when the change was made, although not entirely sure why Fellaini came on. But if you are going to bring on Fellaini, if you are insistent on having him as a plan B, which is a terrible plan B to have for a club that wants to be the size of Manchester United, my bugbear with Fellaini is that if you are going to insist on playing him and you are going to go in direct to him, you must have players around him. It was a huge issue on the night. Only Martial, I can remember, got in and around him. Rooney was sat back in midfield, playing balls in from near the left back position, when he should have been in and around for those drop downs when the ball went in. Young and Lingard were staying too wide. There was nothing. We were relying on Fellaini to take a perfect chest trap and try and bring in other players. You should be having players in there for knockdowns if you are going to play the strategy. Otherwise, it's completely flawed and failed from the start, in my opinion. So that was the issue there. As a result of the 0-0 draw, of course, United's qualification now hangs by a thread. We were in such a better position on the night with that game. If we'd have won it, we were through. We were qualified, and essentially, if we go over to Wolfsburg and hold them to a draw, we're guaranteed top spot in the group. So really disappointing that it's gone from that in one night, from what should have been a routine win against a pretty average side in PSV. I think it's fair to say. We now must match PSV's result at home to CSK in our away game at Wolfsburg to progress. So if they draw, we have to. If they win, we have to win as well. Now, the big concern is that if we don't go through, we are guaranteed a Europa League spot, which I feel would only waste our time and stretch our currently short resources in a tournament we aren't really bothered about. Now, the big concern for me is that if we do progress, is that we could be on the end of an embarrassment if we don't up our game against one of the better teams. The advantage of if we do progress, though, is that we will progress top of the league if we beat Wolfsburg. And therefore that means we'll miss out on one of the bigger teams in the last 16. But a real worry in terms of the Champions League and whether or not it's even worth our time considering this season when we are actually pushing quite well for the title without playing particularly well. Now, we asked you on Twitter for your opinions on this. Will United qualify for the knockout stages? We put the options as yes, no, or better off if we don't. 55% of fans said no, they don't think we're going to qualify. 22% said we're better off not qualifying for it, and just 23% think that we will qualify. And I don't blame the other 77% for not saying yes either. Now, more poll results and fan opinion to come next as we move on to this week's Fan Takeover. So every Monday we ask you some of the big questions around United and ask for you to get involved with your opinion. Unfortunately, with having no studio available this week, there is no phone-in, which should be back next week, but still plenty of great involvement from the Twitter following, as always, at We Follow United. I'm going to dive straight in there. The first question that we asked on this week's Fan Takeover was, did you feel United's win was more the mark of champions or a let-off from a naive and toothless attacking display? Now, looking at the poll results from that, 61% said the mark of champions, which I find interesting. And personally, I'm with the other 39% in the minority there. To me, that wasn't a struggle of a game that we edged. That wasn't the sort of game that you go away from and think, how did we come away with a result from there? You know, they absolutely battered us. They put us under the cosh. You know, they really upped their game for us and we struggled through. It wasn't like that. We were comfortable, as I said earlier. We did have chances and we were completely dug out of a huge hole at the death by that fortunate own goal. That's just my opinion. It is, however, one of those games that you will look back on at the end of the season. So I agree with fans who see it in this way. And sort of one of those games that defines the position of where a team finish. I can understand that, and I think that's perhaps why some people have gone for the sort of mark of champions, perhaps in a way that it will define our season. I get that side of things. A couple of people got involved with their opinion on that question on Twitter. At AXAS23, that's of course Alex from the United stand, says, can't call it a let-off when you don't have a striker on the pitch. Now that's fair comment, and I completely understand where Alex is coming from on that, but I made the point back to him that if LVG had only been with the club a couple of months, I'd have probably let that go. But the fact that none of the likes of Robin Van Persie, Falcao, Hernandez were replaced, and that's what's left us short of attacking options going forward. Now, I do believe personally that we should have got rid of Falcao. He was a flop, and injury concerns made him, impossible to sign, really. And Hernandez wasn't right at the club either. He was having a bad time of it, and he needed to move on with his career. But one more centre forward should have come in. Louis van Gaal is to blame for that, and that's why I would still say that it was a let-off. Yes, we had to use Memphis, but that was completely Louis van Gaal's fault. I would also add to that we had adequate chances for any player to put away. I mentioned earlier about the Jesse Lingard opportunity from Daley Blind's pass. That chip should have gone over Gomez. It should have been in the back of the net, and that should have been game wrapped up. I understand the point you're making, but he's had years to put this squad together. He spent hundreds of millions, and we're left with no striker in an away game in the Premier League. That is poor planning. Now, at Clay 1978 United got involved with his thoughts on it. He said a bit of both in his opinion. Great to get a late winner. An understrength United, but showed rivals how it's done. And yes, we were under strength on the day because of the problems that I've raised there. And yes, it was a poor weekend for our rivals. So in that respect, great result on the day. But I think Louis van Gaal, as I say, was too gung-ho in the removal of Deadwood, and that's what left us short. He was perfectly aware of United's recent injury woes since he's been at the club with the way he's chose to train the players. And so, for me, it was a let-off as a result, not only of a naive and toothless attacking display, perhaps, but also as a result of LVG's naivety in the market and removal of Deadwood at such a gung-ho sort of level. Now, moving on to the second question we asked on Twitter this week, we put out there that Smalling has been influential at the back, which I don't think anyone would disagree with. We asked, do you believe an injury to Smalling would lead to defensive chaos? Now, 80% of fans said yes on this, and when you look at what that would leave us with, you can understand why. Smalling has been a colossus for us at the back, and I don't feel Jones or Rojo are of nearly that standard or of that confidence level to run the defence as Smalling has alongside Daley Blind on the whole this season. And credit to Daley Blind, he's been a superb partner to Chris Smalling in that back line. I agree with the 80% of fans. I think it would lead to defensive chaos. And I think that, again, only goes to highlight the fact that we are short in a lot of areas of the pitch. If Chris Smalling's gone, our defence looks a completely different animal. And I would worry considerably more that we were going to concede a shed load of goals more. So that is something that needs addressing as well. Now, some fans that got involved in sharing their opinion on this put out there at Big C75, put Smalling's been brilliant, but at no point has he done it alone. He also mentions about the work rate of David De Gea, of course, in goal, who has been brilliant, and has been crucial, as I said. So, yeah, David De Gea does deserve credit, absolutely, for helping the defence. I just think Chris Smalling helps keep it secure and well organised. Now, I'll move on to the third question. I don't think there's much else to cover on that, but please let us know if you've got any other thoughts on if we were to lose Chris Smalling, what would it lead to for us at the back at We Follow United? Just comment to us. Moving on to question 3 from the fan takeover. This was inspired by one of our regulars at Clay 1978 United. We put out the question, are there any other teams you consider bigger title contenders than Man United? 53% of fans said yes, there are bigger teams, or better contenders rather, for the title this season. And at Copious Opium, that's Ryan, says City are still bigger contenders than United. I'd say we were pegging level with Arsenal at the moment in terms of the title. Both lack consistency. And I think consistency is something that's going to be important for the team that wins the title this season. At C. Clay 1978 United, Chris Clay himself, who inspired the question, says, just believe that it's a poor Premier League this season and we look solid in dealing with problems. Just a shame there's no centre-forward options. Now, my sort of thoughts on this, I still think City are the team to beat to win the title. I think Arsenal have some great players and play some sublime football, but they have about as much backbone as a set of butterfly, and have a habit of falling apart through the season, as we well know, and as I'm sure they will continue to do so. City, though, are capable of scoring in any situation, and I think if they keep Kompany, Silva and Aguero fit for the most part of the season, I still see them walking the league. But the league is crying out, as some people have mentioned the point and touched upon it. The league is looking for a team to just go on a winning run, and whoever that is, if any team is capable of putting a few wins back to back together, they will breeze the title this season. That is the current position we're in. Now, moving on to the fourth question then from the fan takeover. This was one that Nick wanted to know your opinion on. And so he asked, in terms of transfer targets for January, would you go with Premier League proven, someone like Mane, for example, or would you go for a gamble sort of out the box and outside of the Premier League that could be a bit cheaper, someone like Musa, for example, in the same position? Now, 82% of this, it was a bit of a landslide, said that they would take Premier League proven talent over the gamble of going abroad. And I can understand that. I just wonder if you sort of pick someone like Musa for around the price, if you can get them for around half the price of someone like Mane, is it worth the gamble? It's just a question that we put out there. Now, at Big C75 got involved on this one. He said it's got to be Premier League proven. Can't be waiting around for players to adapt to English football. Leave that for the summer window. Perhaps a fair point, but there you go. That was the thoughts of everyone from the fan takeover on the polls that we put out there. If you've got any differences of opinion, if you agree with us but for a different reason, or if you disagree, by all means, share your opinion with anything that we've discussed during that or anything else on the show at We Follow United on Twitter, or simply comment in the comment section below. Thanks to everyone who got involved and had their say on this week's fan takeover at We Follow United on Twitter. And we're going to end the Chronicles Express show this week with the weekend preview, of course, looking ahead to the Leicester game. So let's hold the vodka and the Charlie and stop Jamie Vardy from having his party. Weekend preview up next. So then, it's the Saturday 5:30 kickoff. It's the big one. It's the clash between first and second in the league as Manchester United visit the King Power Stadium. Now, is this part one of the title decider? Absolutely not. However, we cannot disrespect Leicester on their current form. We should know more than any side, especially following the topsy-turvy 5-3, of course, at the King Power from last season. Just wanted to have a quick look at some of the stats ahead of the game, first of all, just to see where the sort of form guide and where things are sort of going at the moment. Leicester have only kept one clean sheet at home this season. Now that's certainly good news for us because we've struggled for goals going forward. So certainly good to know that Leicester have been shipping goals even at home as well. So there's going to be a chance for us. We just have to make sure we're more clinical. We need to be taking any chances that we make because Leicester will certainly create plenty going back the other way. Now, the good news from United's point of view is that we have kept 3 clean sheets away from home so far this season. We have been harder to beat, as we've mentioned. We have been more solid at the back, but Leicester will, as I say, really give us a go on the day. Jamie Vardy, as we're going to go into in a little bit more detail in just a moment, will be absolutely chomping at the bit to beat Ruud van Nistelrooy's record of scoring in consecutive league games, especially with it being against Man United, of course. Looking further at some of the stats, Leicester have scored 28 this season and conceded 20. So they're the top scorers in the league, which is a danger, as I say, but they have conceded the most of any team in the top half. So this could be a real high-scoring game. It could get out of control. If we let it get as open as we did against PSV, then we are in for a goal fest, and I'm not necessarily sure that that's going to go in our favour either. United have scored 9 less than Leicester when you look at this at the tables. 19 goals from us, but we have conceded just 9, which is the lowest in the league. So keep it tight. Let's try and get a professional 1-0 routine away win. That would be taken right now by, I imagine, 99.9% of United fans. But how do we go about stopping Leicester? Pretty simple for me. We stop Vardy and we stop Mahrez in particular. Their team have been playing exceptionally well as a unit, but those two are the particular danger players, especially against the way that United have been playing of late. I made the point on Twitter ahead of the PSV game that we need to ideally get Darmian back in the side, so I was glad to see him in there last night, even though he did have a bit of a torrid time in terms of dealing with the strength of PSV coming on the counter. And I also said that we need to see if Lingard can do some defensive work, sort of getting back in there to support, whether it be Darmian on the right or whether it be Blind or Rojo on the left, whichever way we choose to go. Now, the reason I mention this is that Vardy has got a habit of drifting out to the left-hand side. If you look at a lot of his goals that aren't penalties, he does tend to drift out to the left and just destroys defenders one-on-one for pace, and that gets him into the box with great chances to score. And I think Lingard showed last night he is capable of tracking back, certainly. I remember there was one where he sort of ran 40, 50 yards back up the pitch to cover for Darmian and won the ball back. That's great to see, and that's exactly the sort of commitment we're going to need from those wingers or wide players in the team tracking back to support. So that would be why I would give Lingard the nod over Mata, because I think Mata, when you look at the Arsenal game, did not provide Darmian any support whatsoever against Alexis Sanchez. We can't afford to be allowing players to sort of double up. We need good work rate coming back. I think to handle Mahrez, you need to play Young. As I say, we can play Lingard or Young left or right, but I think they'll both provide the same job in terms of the work rate coming back, and I think that's going to be very important against Leicester. So what team would I choose to play? If I was Louis van Gaal, I would stick with David De Gea, of course, in goal. Back four of Darmian, Smalling, Rojo and Blind. Reason I played Blind at left back in this game is because I thought he was great there against Watford. And I also think if you put him at centre-back, Vardy will plant himself on Daley Blind. And of course, we've all seen Vardy's pace and we've all seen Blind's pace. He's great at recovering, but I think Vardy would have pace to get by Blind and get a couple of chances. Midfield too, I'm going to stick with the midfield. That's, of course, Schneiderlin and Schweinsteiger. Why? Well, because although they were very poor against PSV, we know what an attacking side Leicester are. And those two are capable of protecting our back four well on a normal day. They had a bad day at the office midweek, but I actually thought they were very good in protecting our defence at Watford and made the game very comfortable for the most part. So they stick in there for me. Now, the three ahead of them that I would play, Lingard I would go for on the right, Rooney in the middle because Mata has been out of form, and of course Herrera is injured unfortunately, and then Young out on the left. And that means I would get Martial up top. You have to give him the nod. Despite the fact that he has been goal shy since his great start at United, you have to play him there and we have to get service into him. And that will end this sort of goal drought that he's currently on as well. Let us know your team on Twitter at WeFollowUnited or in the comment section below. What team do you think works best? Do you agree with the team that I've gone for? Would you play it differently? Would you set it up with a different system? Would you play different players to the ones I've chosen? Let me know, please. Be interested to hear. We're going to end the show and the weekend preview with the score predictions. Please do get involved in our Premier League Predictor League if you're not already. Absolutely great stuff to be involved in, and I will get the league table up to date shortly and publish that on Twitter so we can see where we're up to and who's leading it. All you need to do for that is comment in the link that I put in the comment section below the video, and there is also a link we've put up on Twitter as well, which we'll put up as a pinned tweet ahead of the weekend. So just comment your score prediction on there. It's really easy. Get some of those in from the fans first of all. At J_Tazza goes for a 2-1 United win. At CClay1978 United going for a 4-1 United win. I hope I've read that right, but that's ambitious even from Chris. And he also adds, I hope Vardy doesn't break Rude's record. Let's pray. At Cogsy666 goes 2-0 United. So there are a couple of the opinions of fans, so let them know if you agree with any of those or disagree. Get your score predictions in. I'll also get Nick and Joe to fire in theirs on the comment section of the video below as well. I personally am going to agree with J_Tazza. I'm going 2-1 United. I think there will be a couple of goals in this one, hopefully not too many. But let's hope we can just scrape the 3 points and get out of there after what was a haunting day, of course, last season. Now, that's it from me this week. Hoping to be back in the studio next week with Nick and Joe hopefully returning. We'll look forward to it and hopefully get some fans back involved on the phone in. But it's been great to get some content out there. I hope you've enjoyed it. Do give the video a like if you've enjoyed. Do subscribe to the channel for regular content. And in the meantime, enjoy the fox hunt at the King Power.